We're very pleased to offer this topic. I'll let Sharon introduce herself as she's a professor at Longwood University and the National Council President of Alpha Lambda Delta. So Sharon, take it away.
Hello, welcome this afternoon. I appreciate you taking time, and I'm excited that you're interested in the scholarship. First of all, let me tell you, I've served on all three committees. So these are the kind of things that we've actually noticed in terms of things that have worked and things that have been missing. So as we're taking a look at this, the applications are due to the national office on April the 1st. Oh, all right, we're going to have to go this way. So as we're looking at it, there are 37 total scholarships. They range in value from $1,000 to $6,000. And the number of applicants each university can submit depends on the size of the initiation class of the previous year. So let's talk a little bit about that first. In terms of the scholarships, there's a grand total of $89,000 that's awarded every single year in the Trow scholarships. There are 5 of them that pay $6,000 each. There are 10 of them that pay $3,000 each. There are 7 that pay $2,000 each, and the last 15 pay $1,000 each. So of those scholarships, the highest ones get the $6,000 and so on. But as we go through that, everyone's awarded at least $1,000. So this is definitely worth your time and energy in terms of applying for it. In terms of how many applications your institution can submit, if you had last year, and last year would have been 2018, for the entire 2018 year, if you had under 150 new members that were inducted, then you can only submit 1 application. So if there are multiple people in your chapter that want to submit a Trow scholarship, then you're going to have a committee at that university, and you're going to have to decide which one you want to submit to the national office. If you inducted between 150 and 299 new members last year, then you can submit 2 applications for your university. And if you had 300 or more new members, you can submit 3 applications. So no school, no matter how large they are, can submit more than 3 applications. And once again, if multiple people want to apply, then it's up to the chapter to decide which ones they're going to push forward. So if you're an officer and you're looking at applying, this will help you apply. If you are an advisor and you're trying to decide which ones you should submit, this will also help you decide which one of your applications would be the most competitive. So the eligibility for Alpha Lambda Delta is, once again, it had to be someone who applied, who became a member of Alpha Lambda Delta last year. So if you were inducted last year between January 1st and December 31st of 2018, and you have a 3.5 GPA, you are eligible to apply. If you were inducted this year, January or February of 2019, you're not eligible to apply until next year. So it's based on the previous year's inductees. The eligibility, I strongly encourage you to apply because each year we have approximately 100 applicants, and if we're awarding 37 scholarships, that's better than a 3-to-1 ratio. So pretty much more than 1/3 of the people who apply earn a scholarship. So this is a very nice ratio to have. So it's definitely worth your time and energy to go through and go through the process. You're not going to find too many scholarships of this level that actually have that. And once again, you'll see this over and over and over again. But all of this is actually on the website. So the stipulation is that if you actually accept it, then you have to agree to complete your year of study next year. So this is an award that'll be for the 2019-2020 year. So if you apply and you are enrolled and you receive it, you're going to be required to be enrolled full-time at that university working for the degree over the course of the year. Okay, so we're talking about the entire year. So if you're requesting for some kind of exception, that cannot be done individually. That has to be done through the national office. So if you're planning on applying, but there's something going on that is going to affect this, you being enrolled full-time for the duration of the entire year, working towards your degree, and you think you may qualify for an exemption of for some special reason, you need to contact the ALD national office directly. The scholarship funds are awarded for educational purposes only. Yes, I had a question up here from Emma Canning, and we say the entire year. We do mean fall and spring. We realize that a lot of students now actually go through and work in the summertime. So this is the fall and spring academic year. Okay. And the scholarship, if you receive it, is designed to be for educational purposes. And so that means it could go towards room and board, tuition and fees, books. The purpose is educational purposes. If there's any doubt, once again, you can contact the national office if you're not sure whether or not it's an educational purpose. So the application process, right, really does depend chapter by chapter. You can upload your application to the national website. However, it's going to have to be approved by your local chapter. And so if you're not quite sure what the process is, I strongly encourage you to contact your chapter advisor. And if you're not sure who your chapter advisor is, you can go through and contact the national office and they can help you out as well. You are going to have to submit an official application from each college that you attended. So I mention this very quickly because sometimes it may take a while to get that official, application. How about official transcript? I just found a typo in this, my apologies. So for every college that you've attended, you will need to submit an official college transcript. So this doesn't include your high school, but this does include colleges. So if you went to a community college during a summer school or something, or you've been to 2 different colleges, you need to submit the transcripts from both of them. Okay. And I recommend that now so that you can get to it. And then once again, here is the link to the actual application. So we'll see that coming over and over. All applications are scored on 100 points. And so when you go through, and we'll look at the application in just a minute here, that you'll see that 10 points of it, so 10% of it goes towards the undergraduate coursework as well as your GPA. 5% of it goes towards your employment information. 20% of it goes towards your contributions to your ALD chapter. 10% goes to significant campus activities. 5% goes to honors and other recognitions. 5% goes towards your career goals. 25% goes towards your impact of ALD essay. And 20% goes towards your recommendation letters. When you look at this, you can tell by this scoring rubric that ALD is very heavy in this process. So you want to make sure that you really emphasize your contributions to ALD and you really take time to work on that ALD essay. Now, when you are completing the application, you need to remember that the people who are going to be reading this application do not know you. As a matter of fact, they may not know anything about your university. So you need to go through and explain. Don't just go through and say, I received this award, or I received that award. You need to explain what the reward was for. Because oftentimes these awards are specific to your university. So when someone is looking at your application and they're not from your university, they will not understand what it is. So explain what you're doing. Don't just go through and list things, okay? And you want to go through and follow the directions very carefully. So if they're asking a specific question, you want to make sure that you answer that question. You don't create your own question. You want to make sure that you give them exactly what's asked for. And pay close attention to those point values. Something that's worth 5 points, you don't want to spend all your time on that and sort of neglect the one that's worth 20 points. So pay close attention to the point values and be very specific to give the information that's requested. Now, there is a Word document, okay, that you can use to upload this. So let me go up here and show you some things that I'm talking about. Okay. Okay, just a moment here. Zoom is changing things over. And I'm having it pull up the application. Okay. All right. Are you seeing the app? Let me see what I have here. Okay. So you should be seeing the application as I'm looking at this. And you'll notice, you'll see the basic information, your name, your address, the institution, major. But when we get down here, you'll actually see some essay questions. So they're asking for your list of employment. They're asking contributions to Alpha Lambda Delta, summarize the campus activities, keep on going, honors and recognitions, an essay of 250 words about your career goals, another essay of 250 words about the impact of Alpha Lambda Delta, and then it gives you a chance to pull up your transcripts as well as adding your letters of recommendation. Okay, so all of this is up here, but you'll notice this is a lot of information. You really don't want to go through and type all of this by hand. Okay? This is not a good idea. You want to go through and do this in a document so that you can check your grammar and your spelling and so on. And you can actually do nice things in terms of editing and so on. So let me pull up another website that we have. And this is the actual Joanne Trow Undergraduate Scholarship application. Before you get to the official application where you upload it, this is where you come to it. And it has a listing of everything you need here. But what I want to point to you about is at the very bottom, it actually has down here, click here for the ALD Trow Scholarship Worksheet. That's a Word document. It has all the information that is on the application that we just saw that's online. I strongly recommend that if you're going to apply for this, you download this Word document and then you go through and you type up everything just as if you were going to do the application. The nice thing about Word is that it'll do spell check for you, it'll do grammar check for you, it will let you save it, come back to it later so that you don't have to do it all at one time. You can sleep on it if you come up with something else you need to do, if you want to show it to someone, to have someone proofread it for essays or anything like that, that's all fine. Another nice thing about Word is that it actually does a word count. So those essays that are only 250 words, this will actually show you how many words you're using. So you don't accidentally type in 300, or you'll know that you just have 200, you have another 50 words if you want to use them. Okay? It's definitely worth your while to spend your time using this. Okay. Okay, so those are some things that are going to help you as we go through this. So let's talk about the application itself. So we just mentioned earlier about these points that we're talking about. So when you solve through that, there are a lot of short answers. And there's a lot of things that filled in. Some of these are pretty much can be done in terms of bullets with brief explanations, but some actually require short answers. Okay? So when you're creating these short answers, realize that these scholarships recognize merit and service. So when you're going through this, you're really not going to see places to talk about financial aid or assistance or things like that. So what you want to emphasize is your merit and your service. So you want to present yourself as very multi-dimensional, which means, which means you really want to highlight those awards and accomplishments. That's 5 points. But once again, they sort of go through and they aid what you saw in terms of GPA and the transcript and so on. So you want to explain things. If you're in the Honors College, you want to explain that you're in the Honors College. If you're working on an honors project, you want to explain that. A lot of times those are hidden inside the transcripts, and it's not easily legible to someone outside of your university. So when you see things that you know you're doing that haven't actually necessarily highlighted, or they have names that outsiders aren't going to understand, make sure you let us know about that. Also emphasize your community service. The campus activities are 10 points. And so if you're actively involved in other organizations and you're heavily involved in community service activities with those organizations as well, you want to include that as well. Now, leadership is what we're looking for here, but we understand it's a lot more than titles. So you want to go through and talk about the leadership that you have in those other organizations, okay? Not just Alpha Lambda Delta. And when it talks about the contributions to Alpha Lambda Delta, that is worth 20 points, so that is worth your time. So you need to be specific there. Don't just say, I was the treasurer, or I'm an active member. What have you actually done in your chapter? What have you been actively involved in? How have you been helpful? The same thing in terms of how Alpha Lambda Delta has impacted your life. We're not looking for the goals of Alpha Lambda Delta. Okay, we understand what those are. How has it impacted you personally? How has it made you a better person? How has it changed your university life or so on? Okay, so be very specific. I know you have a word count here as we're going through it, but use it carefully. Now, the references are also 20 points, and you are only allowed 2 references, so you want to choose those references very carefully. One reference must be a faculty member or instructor of record. That is a requirement. If one of your references is not a faculty member or instructor of record, if that person cannot speak to your academic ability, then you're going to be in trouble in terms of the points. The second one can be anyone you want except a family member. Okay, hold on, I have a question here. For the campus activity sections, you mentioned community service and campus involvement hand in hand. Can these be separate? Yes. So there are 2 questions here. One is that do campus activities in campus and community service, do they have to be together? Can they be separate? They can be separate. You could have community service that has nothing to do with campus involvement. Okay, you could be doing things maybe for things back home, you could also be volunteering things that in the local area. It doesn't have to necessarily be on campus. And will it hurt my chances if I am not as active on campus but volunteer off campus? No, that is perfectly fine as we're going through this. What could hurt your chances is if you're not active in ALD. You definitely want to point to that. So I know I had mentioned campus involvement and community service, and I apologize, the reason I normally do that is most students, if they're active in the community at the college level, it's more than likely through campus. But if you are a commuter student or you live off campus, then please do not leave anything off that is not campus related. Anything that's involvement and that's in service, we definitely want to see. Okay, so let me go back. The two references, we already mentioned one had to be a faculty member or an instructor of a record. The other one needs to be someone other than a family member. You need to be very, very careful with this. Aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, it's very hard if you're a reviewer not to see that as biased. So you really do need to make sure that second reference is as a non-biased person, and the best way to do that is just don't ask family members to do it. That's just the safest way. That being said, you do want to choose references who know you well, which means don't choose the faculty member that gave you an A in organic chemistry and never saw you outside of class. Go to the instructor that, maybe the Spanish instructor that you got a B in, that you went to on a regular basis, you worked very hard with, and they know who you are, they know how hard you work, and they know what an exceptional student you are. Do both references a favor, and don't just ask them to be a reference. Go in and talk to them, sit down with them. Don't just hand them your resume, but talk to them about what this scholarship is. Why are you applying for this scholarship? What makes you so worthy of this scholarship? Give them some ideas of what you're looking for, okay? What's the point of this scholarship? You don't want them writing a reference letter for graduate school, because that's not what this is. So you want them to be aware that this is a scholarship for undergraduate students, and it's to reward your academics as well as to your service. So make sure they understand what's supposed to be in that letter as well. But you want to make sure it's personal, so you want to choose people who know you well, which is also a wonderful reason to get to know your professors. Any questions so far? Okay. So if you get the scholarship, you will have some responsibilities, okay? First of all, everyone will be notified in July. So by the end of July, you should know whether or not you received a scholarship. So you want to keep an eye on that email in July. Once Alpha Lambda Delta notifies you that you have been awarded a scholarship, you need to reply to them promptly. You don't want to wait until August to reply, because we will have 37 people that are awarded, but we will also have runners-up. So if someone doesn't accept the scholarship, then it will be offered to someone else. So if you are offered a scholarship, then you want to reply immediately, so that to let them know that you are accepting the scholarship, so that they don't then turn around and give it to someone else because you haven't replied. And then once you are registered in the fall semester, you will need to send verification to the national office. The scholarship funds will not be sent to you, they'll be sent to your institution. So once you have been notified that you have a scholarship, you want to let Alpha Lambda know immediately, so that they can then make arrangements with your institution. because you do want these funds in your account to help pay for tuition, fees, books, and whatever during your fall semester. And then if you are on a scholarship and you have money for some of these, then you need to talk to your institution. And once the national office tells you the money has been forwarded, about where the money should go. Any questions so far? Okay. So I've gone through this fairly quickly because I know you're all honor students. I know you've all done applications before. I just wanted to highlight things specific to this application that we've had trouble with in the past. If you need any help, you have your chapter advisor. You have your chapter officers you can turn to. You have the Trow website, and you have the ALD National Office. Okay. Now, I also want to go through and show you one more thing, and I'm going to share one last website. And this is the website when you go under awards and scholarships and you go down to the Joe and J. Trow undergraduate scholarships, this is what pops up. And when you see this, you actually see the same information I gave you. You have the amount up here for the dollar amount being awarded. You have who's eligible to apply. You have how many applications. You have the button to actually click to apply. You have a listing of all the points that we talked about. There are even some questions and answers down here as you go through this in terms of commonly asked questions. Okay. You also have recipients from the previous year. And you'll notice when we go through this, the recipients are from all over the United States. You're not seeing everybody from the same university. You see small universities, you see large universities, you see every kind of major you can imagine here. Okay, so you can tell this is definitely open to everyone. Okay. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so are there any last questions or anything so far?
Apply today. I'm going to thank you, Sharon, for that. I'm just going to chime in and ask you a question, given your experience as a reader of several scholarship committees, not just the Trow, but in general. Is there anything you would say? I mean, you gave some good advice about typos and spell check and that sort of thing, but what is it about scholarship applications that don't make, that don't pass the mustard, as they say, that that just don't get, and especially the ones that are low rated, or start there. What really is an unfortunate thing you see in applications?
One thing I see a lot, besides just the typos and so on, is it's very generic. Somebody obviously put together a resume and threw up the resume. They didn't take the time to actually go through and write nice questions or nice answers. Mm-hmm. They didn't make it personal and explain things. Sometimes when it's really sad, you see some really good grades, and then you go through and you read these essays and say, now I know this student's better than that. Their grades reflect they're better than this. But I'm not understanding what they're trying to say, or this is just a generic, well, as a teacher, this is just something where it looks like they threw it together to try to get some bonus points, should I say, rather than specifically trying to answer everything.
Right. I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of students might, they're applying for a lot of scholarships. They went to the scholarship office on campus, and they there's like 6 scholarships they're applying for, And if that's the case, I think the tendency or what might be to just sort of cut and paste the same answers to everything so you're not rewriting. And that makes some sense. I mean, there's got to be some common language you're using across all your applications. But I think that's an important point, that give each one its unique, its due to what it's really asking. And don't just sort of dial it in and copy and paste from 6 other scholarship applications, because it's going to read as generic and like you're really not even trying. And so what would you say then are the top reasons that students do get scholarships? What would be like a key point of a winning scholarship application?
Well, one of the things we're definitely looking for is contributions to ALD, because this is ALD money. And so something, when we're looking at that, we're looking for, what have you done that is really extraordinary? You know, have you done something amazing at your chapter? Something that's new, something that's creative, something that you were in charge of, or did you take on a major responsibility that was very difficult, that took a lot of time and energy? I think the big things that stand out for us are ALD related, because that's what we are.
Right. Is it fair to say you don't necessarily have to be the president of your chapter necessarily, but if you took on something, you know, you led a service project and you got 50 students to go on a bus and build a house for Habitat for Humanity, or you know, you led a project. You don't have to be the president or vice president.
Correct. As a matter of fact, some of the most difficult jobs in ALD are not the president or vice president. When you think about it, if you have someone who is a volunteer, not even an officer, but they went through and they took on, let's say, a cleanup project where they went through and they spent an entire weekend cleaning up an area in the town. I mean, that's big, when they recruited from other organizations and they had to organize all of this.
Right. I mean, and just to take that a little bit further, what if you're just, not to sort of belabor this point, but just one more piece of it. If maybe you didn't plan a big successful project, but you were there every meeting, you came to every meeting, you go to every event, it means a lot to you, you're getting a lot out of it, you're contributing in many ways, even if you're not this extroverted type who's getting 50 people to get on a bus. I mean, there's some value in that. Is that a competitive applicant?
Yes, but that's where the explanation comes into play.
Okay.
You can't just say, I attended every meeting. You need to talk about what happened, what you got out of it. I know we've given awards like that, but they've been very specific. I went to these service projects. This is where I was helpful. This is where I grew as a person. I went to these sessions, maybe on resume building or on study skills, and this is what helped me out academically. And this is where I've created study groups or whatever. So yes, that you need to explain what physically happened.
The impact, both impact on oneself and the school or chapter. Yeah.
Right.
And the last thing I would say about that is just for students watching, and for advisors too, you know, not that anyone would do this, but be truthful in everything, because we do ask the advisor to verify that's all true, because anybody could apply and say they did 100 things and led, you know, massive projects and leadership activities when they maybe didn't. So we do verify with the advisor, you know, is this, you know, does this reflect reality? So just check on that. Good. I think those are the key things is that I think students might be looking for, is what is it that would make the application a competitive application. So I don't see any other questions. Is there anything else anybody has? And the advisor can certainly help out. And like she mentioned, the Word document's helpful. Type it all out first and have people look at it. Make sure that's all good to go. And then follow along with your process on campus first before applying officially, because it has to be vetted through the advisor. And if you do have any technical issues, sometimes the software we use for the form online doesn't work on some college campuses, or you can't download the Word document, or whatever the case is, please contact us. We can, there's workarounds, there's ways to make sure that every student who wants to apply will apply, provided it goes through the chapter first. But don't worry about any technical stuff. We'll address that. Okay, we're recording this, and so we'll post this on our website for anyone who wanted to scroll back and listen to a few points or look at slides a little bit more carefully. We'll do that in the next couple of days. Thank you, everybody. Any other words of advice, Sharon? All set?
No, I guess my last thing would be to sleep on it. Joe, just type up the application once and turn it in and be done with it. Sleep on it, because you're amazed sometimes of how you will rethink things a little bit. Sometimes it's better to save it, think on it a while, come back to it, do some last minute tweaking, because I'm always the kind of person that can make things better if I think about it a little bit longer.
Yeah, right. Just lastly, with Trow, it's vitally important that you check with your chapter first for the process, because there's 280 different ways that a chapter might deal with Trow scholarship applications. So check with your advisor. Make sure that you know when the local chapter deadline is, because that deadline will be prior to our deadline. And so just make sure that you check with your advisor on the process for applying internally first. And then if you're chosen, you'll get moved on to the national level, and that deadline's April 1st. So the deadlines would be right around now, if not maybe past for some, but mid-March is usually around the time. So check on that soon, and they do vary. So great. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for coming. Look for future webinars on our website. A few more are coming up for the rest of this semester, and we'll launch quite a few more in the summer and fall of 2019. So thanks for joining us. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you, Sharon, very much for everything and for your time. Thanks.